A woman is looking for the item she needs, picking it up and then putting it down again. The man quietly stood in front of the meat counter and pondered. Perhaps you see yourself in that. And then you wonder, why has food in America become so expensive?
Because in this type of economy, the groceries are grocerying and they're expensive.
Every day you go to the store, things are more expensive, and not just food, but things when you look across the board.
Food prices are skyrocketing. In less than 3 years, the price of eggs has nearly doubled. The prices of milk, meat, and fresh vegetables have all reached their highest levels in over a decade. And even more sadly, those most affected are the middle class, once called the backbone of America. They have worked hard their entire lives, paid their taxes fully. Yet now, even a simple dinner makes them hesitate. This reality is happening in the very states that were once considered the wealthiest, most stable, and most desirable places to live in America. In today's video, we will explore 10 states that are quietly falling into crisis as food prices continue to rise, making each trip to the grocery store a rather challenging task. And is your state on this list? Stay with us until the end. When California is mentioned, in the memories of many Americans, it is a symbol of the modern American dream. Wonderful climate, abundant agriculture, and grocery store chains filled with goods. But today, in the very place that was once the food capital of America, people are now weighing every single item each time they step into the supermarket. While the upper class is still engrossed in monitoring the impacts of tariffs on the stock market, another consequence is lurking right at the grocery store. And perhaps you have also noticed that many food items have increased in price. The price of food is really outrageous. That was Dolores's lament as she and her husband loaded the last bags into the car. The couple only talked for a few minutes, but that was enough to see that they were really struggling every time they went to the supermarket.
We're on limited income, retired, of course, we're old, so we don't have that kind of money, so we have to watch.
According to the report from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, over the past year, food prices in California have increased by more than 20%, which could be the largest increase in over 40 years. The items that increase the most are breakfast foods.
Milk is high, eggs are high, meat is skyrocketing, even though we don't eat a lot of it, but still everything.
Worse, other living costs are also not standing still. Gas prices are rising. Rent is increasing. An average American household is having to spend an extra $450 each month just to buy the same things as last year, all due to inflation. Dolores also mentioned that she and her family are gradually having to change their shopping and living habits to cope with this inflationary period.
You have to watch your pennies, so we watch for sales items, and there aren't any anymore. Once in a great while, we'll stock up on those if they are.
Perhaps Dolores is not the only one noticing the changes in the price tags in American supermarkets right now. You or I, all of us can feel it. Clearly, we don't spend extravagantly. We save. It's just that our salaries can't keep up with supermarket prices. In some areas like Oakland, Stockton, or Bakersfield, a multitude of supermarkets and small grocery stores are at risk of closing because they cannot compete with inflation and operating costs. Many residents there have to drive 30 to 40 minutes just to find a place to buy groceries. For those who do not have a car, they resort to living on instant noodles, canned food, or skipping lunch so their children can have enough to eat. Workers in Silicon Valley, retirees in Central Valley, single mothers in Oakland, all are living in the same reality. Food prices are rising too quickly, while everything else is also escalating. Ask yourself, if even in the most prosperous places in America, the middle class has to cut back on meals, then where is safe for the elderly, for the middle class family, and for the future of the children? When mentioning New York, people often think of the dazzling lights at Times Square, the luxurious cars rushing by, and the wealth evident in every aspect of life. But somewhere, behind the skyscrapers and the lavish dinners of the tycoons, millions of working-class families in New York are struggling just to have 3 meals a day. In neighborhoods like the Bronx, Queens, or even Brooklyn, what people are discussing the most right now is not the stock market, but the price of milk and eggs.
It's hard to make ends meet. Adding more money into the grocery bills takes away from something else.
In Buffalo, poverty is widespread in the inner city areas, and the new taxes imposed on food are becoming the top concern for the residents here. Mr. Vinny Guercio, manager of Guercio and Sons store on Grant Street, west of the city, said,
The avocados, because they come out of Mexico, those are spiking quite a bit. They've doubled in price within the last month.
Two local residents, Mr. Brian Lewis and Ms. Lansina Osborne, stated that they are relying on food aid to make up for what they cannot afford at the supermarket. They fear prices will rise sharply due to tariffs.
Everybody is struggling right now, so they're going to even struggle even more.
Many people are in a similar situation as this couple. It's not that they don't know how to save, it's because their pension, benefits, or income from part-time jobs can no longer keep up with the rising cost of food bills. According to a report by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, New York City has the highest increase in food prices among major US metropolitan areas, with an increase of over 24% since 2021. Even with a robust food assistance system among the top in the United States, food banks and charity kitchens in New York are gradually becoming overwhelmed, with the number of people waiting in line tripling compared to pre-pandemic levels, even in once affluent neighborhoods like Astoria. Many middle-class families who once lived comfortably in the suburbs of New York have moved to neighboring states, not because they wanted to, but because staying meant having to cut back on the most basic things in daily life. And if even the center of finance, culture, and dynamism like New York is being affected by the burden of food prices, then what awaits the states with fewer resources? Stay tuned, because in the next state, people are having to cut their own rations, so their children don't have to go to bed hungry. Many people always believed that Texas, with its vast land, large population, and developed agriculture, would be an ideal place to live comfortably without ever having to worry about food shortages. However, today's reality shows us a completely different story. Even middle-class families living in the suburbs no longer find it easy to buy vegetables, meat, or milk as before. According to data from the US Department of Agriculture, food prices in Texas have increased by more than 18% over the past 12 months, one of the highest increases in the southern region. In cities like Houston, Dallas, El Paso, and even the once peaceful rural areas like Lubbock, people are feeling inflation eating into every carton of milk, every loaf of bread, every can of beans. Osama Rashid, the owner of National Foodland in Arlington, has experienced inflation before, but he admits he has never seen it as alarming as it is now. The purchasing power of the local residents has significantly decreased. This affects the store's revenue, and Mr. Rashid is forced to cut staff. Profits are plummeting.
The prices has doubled. We don't have a cake anymore. We just pay our bills usually.
In some poorer areas of San Antonio and East Texas, residents have to drive dozens of miles to find a store that still sells fresh food at an acceptable price. Many farmers' markets have shut down due to doubled transportation, storage, and fertilizer costs caused by import taxes from abroad. The working class in Texas, delivery drivers, technicians, teachers, are facing an ironic truth. Despite working full-time, they still have to cut meals, search for coupons, and occasionally seek food assistance from local churches. But even when seeking assistance, they still cannot ensure meals for their families. According to a survey by Feeding Texas, more than 1.6 million Texans, many of whom are middle class, have had to rely on food banks at least once in the past year. This number has caused food distribution centers in Houston, Amarillo, and Austin to become overwhelmed as the number of people coming to receive food continues to rise. Notably among them are many who were once employed, who were once the ones providing food. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way as I do right now. There is something very wrong in Texas, a state once considered a symbol of independence and self-reliance, where a working person all week is still unsure if they will have enough to eat 3 meals a day. And if even Texas, once called the breadbasket of the South, struggles to protect the middle class from the price crisis, then is there any state strong enough to keep the American dream alive for future generations? Florida, with its warm sunshine, beautiful beaches, and large community of retirees, was once a symbol of a peaceful retirement where people spent their golden years enjoying life. But now, even in breezy coastal cities like Tampa, Sarasota, or Naples, The middle class is starting to struggle with their bills. Food prices in Florida have increased by nearly 22% in just the past 2 years, higher than the national average. Go to the supermarket and check the prices again. 1 gallon of milk, $5.70 to $6.20, depending on the region. Rice, flour, cereals, up 15 to 35%. As for frozen and canned goods are always bought out clean after each storm. According to some reports, it is estimated that there are currently more than 1.6 million people in Florida living in food insecurity, and the majority of them are elderly, retirees, or living on Social Security benefits. Florida does not produce much essential food, so it heavily relies on imports from other states or from abroad. And when inflation persists, transportation costs and import taxes rise sharply. The people have to bear the entire increase in prices, something they never wished for. Even many retirees living on Social Security, with a fixed income of about $1,600 to $2,000 a month, are being forced into a situation of either buying food or paying for home insurance. Because property insurance costs in Florida have increased by 40 to 70% in the past 3 years, following a series of natural disasters. This means that retirees not only pay more for food, but also lose an additional few $100s each month just to keep the roof over their heads. While tourists continue to flock to Disney World or Miami Beach, locals are counting every dollar when they enter the supermarket. Many small grocery stores and supermarket chains in rural North Florida have closed, creating food deserts, areas lacking access to fresh food. People without cars. They eat instant noodles, canned soup, and white bread every day. Not because they like it, but because it's the only way to survive. In a recent survey with elderly people in Jacksonville, more than 48% reported that they are having to cut back on meals or portions to afford electricity, water, and medications. Some elderly people have to reduce their meal portions to save a little money for medical expenses. Many middle-class people are considering relying on local food banks, something they never thought they would have to do before. And then, a gentle question, but not an easy one to answer, arises. If Florida, the retirement paradise, can no longer accommodate those who eat 3 meals a day, then where can we peacefully grow old? Hawaii, in the imagination of millions of Americans, is a resort after a lifetime of dedication. Blue seas, white sands, a peaceful life, and a friendly community. But in this very place, many locals and even retirees from the mainland are having to eat less and live more, simply because everything is gradually becoming out of reach. According to the report, it is estimated that Hawaii imports up to 85 to 90% of daily consumer food, causing prices to be heavily affected by transportation costs. The middle class, including teachers, administrative staff, and technicians, are the ones who feel the most pronounced impact of inflation. Many people shared that they never thought they would find themselves in line waiting for state food assistance. According to the survey, about 1/3 of working people in this state had to apply for food assistance at least once in 2023. Besides food prices, medical and housing costs in Hawaii are also among the highest in the United States, making it difficult for the middle class and retirees to keep up. A person with a stable pension may still have to choose between buying vegetables or paying the blood pressure medication bill. Once, retirees in Hawaii lived slowly, going to the morning market, buying fresh fish and local fruits. But today, retirees eat frozen eggs, canned fruit, and cut back on portions to stay in paradise. And then, a paradox became clear. How can we call it a paradise if there, even a carton of milk can make retirees think twice before buying? When mentioning Illinois, many people think of Chicago, the industrial heart and transportation hub of America. A place that once made people believe that, despite the country's difficulties, Chicago was strong enough to stand firm. But the reality now is very different, especially when it comes to food prices. In neighborhoods like Southside, Englewood, or even suburban areas like Joliet or Rockford, More and more middle-class families are struggling with increasingly tight food budgets. A retired former driver in Aurora shared, "Back in the day, I could buy enough groceries for the whole week with $100. Now that amount is only enough for 3 days, and I have to skip meat." Food prices in Illinois are estimated to have increased by an average of 16% over the past year. But in urban areas, those numbers are even higher. Red meat up 23%, dairy and eggs up over 20%, and frozen foods up nearly 30%. Some residents, especially the elderly, do not have cars or no longer have the strength to travel far. They have started to depend on churches, community centers, or food pantries to obtain the most basic meals. Perhaps what makes people ponder the most in Illinois is the stark imbalance between the economic center and the quality of life of the residents. While new skyscrapers continue to rise in downtown Chicago, retirees, single mothers, and former factory workers are having to eat instant noodles and skip dinner. In the past, when we entered the supermarket, we chose the type of steak we liked. But now, many people have to choose the least expensive option for their wallets. Not because they don't work hard, but because everything, from gas, housing to food, is rising faster than pensions, wages, and even hope. Illinois used to be the place of middle America, of stability and pride. But today, as food becomes a luxury in the kitchens of the working class, it makes us ponder the new definition of the American dream. Alaska, the land of freedom, vast forests, glaciers, and the aurora borealis, is also a place where today people have to choose between meals and heating costs. For many people living in Anchorage, Fairbanks, or indigenous communities like Bethel, Nome, Barrow, going to the market is no longer a weekly routine, but a race to hunt for cheap goods. According to the USDA, Alaska has an average food cost that is 40 to 60% higher than the rest of the United States. It is noteworthy that many communities cannot access goods by road for most of the year. All goods must be transported by plane or ship, causing prices to soar whenever the weather is bad. Most Alaska natives and even retirees here are living off long-lasting food, not by choice, but because there is no other option. Many people shared that it has been quite a while since they last ate fresh vegetables, and their meals revolve around rice, noodles, canned goods, and cheap cereals. Alaska used to be a place where people chose to escape the city, living independently and self-sufficiently. But now, even those who had meticulously prepared financially cannot escape the food price frenzy. Additionally, rising heating costs, scarce medical care, uneven food transportation, and limited subsidies. When combined, they create a burden that many elderly and working individuals in Alaska find hard to bear. And do you see this paradox? A land rich in nature, but the people have to live on canned and dried food because they can't afford a bag of fresh groceries. How will the middle class manage if food prices show no signs of decreasing in the near future? When you think of Georgia, you will picture a prosperous state with fields and a major food supplier for the entire country. But now, the people of Georgia are facing an unacceptable reality. Food prices are skyrocketing, and supermarkets have become a luxury. According to a report from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, over the past year, food prices in Georgia have increased by an average of 18%. Among them, beef and chicken increased by 25%, vegetables and fruits by 15%, and especially, items like cooking oil and spices also did not escape the trend of rising prices. Many people in Georgia are starting to choose food based on its sustainability rather than its quality. Instant noodles and processed foods have become popular choices, even though it is known that these items do not provide adequate nutrition. For low-income families, canned food or food received from charitable organizations is the only lifeline. While areas like Buckhead, Atlanta, where many wealthy individuals and bustling commercial districts are concentrated, do not feel the strong impact of rising food prices, the working class in suburban areas like Macon, Augusta, or Albany are struggling day by day. Residents here now have to drive long distances to reach larger stores, or worse, they have to settle for purchasing low-quality food from smaller grocery stores at exorbitant prices. Georgia, once the cradle of agriculture and wealth from the land, is now facing a profound change. Inflation, tariffs, high operating costs, and supply chain issues are pushing people into a more difficult life. The middle class can no longer afford to maintain their previous lifestyle, and many families are beginning to feel anxious about the future. Can you imagine that in a prosperous state like Georgia, people have to face a tough battle to maintain nutritious meals? And are there any other states in a similar situation? Michigan, famous as the motor state, with a strong industry from Detroit. But now, in contrast to the bustling image of car production lines and past prosperity, many residents in Michigan are facing skyrocketing food prices and supermarkets lacking essential goods. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, over the past year, food prices in Michigan have increased by an average of 18%. Among them, some essential items such as meat, butter, eggs, and vegetables have increased by 20% to 30%. Especially instant noodles and processed foods, once easy and cheap meals, are also at risk of price increases, forcing the working class here to change their shopping habits. While Michigan's automotive industry was once an economic driver, many residents are now witnessing rapid changes in their daily lives. The major supermarkets in Detroit and Flint not only lack food, but even when they have goods, the prices are so high that many middle-class families have to cut back on meals. The small supermarkets in Flint and Saginaw are also facing the risk of running out of stock and being unable to provide enough food for the residents. And it's not just food. Gas prices and rent are also continuing to rise. Everything keeps increasing steadily, but the only thing that remains almost stagnant is the salary. Many families in Detroit and rural areas now have to completely change their way of life and count every penny to make ends meet during this season of rising prices. How can a wealthy state with a strong agricultural and industrial sector not be able to provide enough food for its own residents? And if this situation continues, will the middle class here be able to withstand it? Outside, Las Vegas remains glamorous and bustling, attracting millions of tourists each year. But within residential areas like Paradise, North Las Vegas, or Henderson, home to thousands of working-class families, a silent wave is unfolding right in the kitchen. According to the report, food prices in Nevada have increased by nearly 20% since 2021, directly affecting basic food items such as eggs, milk, and various meats. Furthermore, the post-COVID recovery in Nevada has been uneven. Many people have not yet regained stable employment, while prices are rising faster than income increases. The service industry, which is the backbone of Nevada's economy, remains unstable, making workers in hotels, restaurants, casinos, and so on the most vulnerable group. Although this state does not tax personal income, inflation has caused rent, healthcare, and food prices to skyrocket, making pensions nearly insufficient for independent living. Many charitable organizations in Las Vegas report that the number of people receiving free food has increased by 35% over the past year. And notably among them, the majority are full-time workers or retirees with fixed incomes. Perhaps you once thought, Nevada is cheaper than California, easier to live in than New York. But now, even families living frugally with stable jobs have to consider every item when shopping at the supermarket. Do you remember the time when an American working-class family could buy enough food for a week for just $100? In Nevada today, that amount of money sometimes is only enough for a few basic items. And no vegetables. If in a state once considered easy to live in, easy to stick around, where people have to skip meals to get by, then where is there left for the middle class to call stable? For decades, Americans have believed in a simple principle. If you work hard, save wisely, and live kindly, then you won't have to worry about food, clothing, shelter, and a decent life in your old age. But this video is not about those who waste. But we are talking about those who did everything right, yet still got left behind. They just hope. To be able to go into the supermarket without counting every cent, without having to put back the items they need from the shelf, because the budget isn't enough. When the middle class, the backbone of the country, is no longer sure they can eat enough every day. Maybe you are living in one of the states just mentioned. Maybe you have felt your shopping cart getting lighter each week. Or maybe you've just started paying attention to your grocery bills and realized, why are things so expensive? Share your story in the comments section below. And if you think this content needs to be spread, don't forget to subscribe. The content in this video is compiled from various reliable sources, statistical reports, and reflects the reality of people in states across the United States. This is not financial, investment, or personal policy advice. The video is intended for sharing, exploring, and analyzing social issues, aiming to promote understanding and dialogue within the community. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. We will continue this story in the comments section below.